Library Board of Trustees to order. Due to some technical difficulties, we're convening a little late. It is 7:13. We have a quorum. Other than the recording of the meeting by Trish, is anybody else have a recording device?
No.
Hearing none? No? Okay, the first item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from the January 11th, 2021 meeting. Have all the trustees had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Does
Yes.
anybody have any additions, amendments, deletions, or revisions?
No.
Hearing none, the chair will accept a motion to approve the minutes of the January 11th, 2021 meeting.
Motion.
Second,
Okay, who made the motion? Maureen?
No.
Mary
I did.
Beth.
Mary Beth.
Did it and
Motion made
seconded.
by trustee Person, seconded by trustee Macy Phelps. I'll call the roll. Trustee Van Au,
Aye.
trustee Cole,
Aye.
trustee Thornton,
Aye.
trustee Persons,
Aye.
trustee Macy Phelps,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is an update and discussion of the COVID-19 situation in the town and its impact on the library. And I'm happy to say that Chris Coleman, the town administrator, and Joan Courtney Murray, the personnel director, who was also, I think, the COVID contact target.
Queen of COVID, yeah.
Maven, whatever, in Westwood is with us. And as we discussed at our January 11th meeting, we just wanted to have an update. I know it's a very moving target in terms of where the town is in terms of COVID, and also where the, what that means for the library. So I'll turn it over to Joan and Chris and Trish.
Thank you. Thank you. So Chris, feel free to jump in here. I don't have much of an update since we spoke last. The governor relaxed a few of his restrictions, but none that apply to us in particular. We are staying the course with the suggested, number of people at inside gatherings and outside gatherings until now, 5 a.m. on February 8th. So according to my recollection, we were talking about, reviewing the plan that Tricia had put in place for what that next phase would be. And I think, and I will say I listened to a couple of webinars today, and I think that the numbers are starting to come down, which is really, really great news. So I'm hopeful that February 8th there will be an announcement that we can start to ramp up a little bit. I will say that it seems from a very informal, just perusing of local libraries, that we are ahead of where other libraries are, our neighbors, in terms of the services that we're providing, because we never did close down our browsing. So I think the next step will be well timed to think about that next step of allowing people to come in and reserve some space, under very strict guidelines, to be able to be in the library at a study table for a period of time. But February 8th is our new magic date. Chris, have I forgotten anything from your perspective in terms of your knowledge, your intel on Governor Baker's orders?
Joan, I think you covered everything, but just to reemphasize, what the town has done is we have taken an approach following the guidelines of the Commonwealth and also basing it off of information that we have for Westwood specifically. So in some cases, let's say like maybe in September, October timeframe, you may have seen other communities doing more within their library services than we were doing here. But also recently, you may have seen Westwood doing more than other communities because other communities actually closed their libraries based on some of the information that we've received off of the websites. So for example, like West Norwood just reopened today. Needham is still closed until February 15th. So I think it's just and I know the library trustees, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's a tribute to the staff who are keeping the library services going. Also a tribute to our residents who are continuing to follow the guidelines and continue to seek the services from the library. So thank you all for your patience. And as Joan said, we are hoping that February 8th will allow us to go back to the plan that Tricia put together right before the governor rolled us back from phase 3, step 2 to phase 3, step 1.
So I take from that, Joan, Trish, and Chris, that we should just maintain existing service. What we're doing is what we can safely do under the current circumstances and consistent with what the town wants to have as its approach. And that and for February 8th, we should look at it again. That's my takeaway. Is that an accurate reflection?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Okay.
It looks like- excuse me, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Are we due to meet on February 8th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Handy.
Handy.
Well, maybe we'll have some breaking. Okay.
I hope you're not meeting at 5 a.m. on February 8th.
No.
Okay.
We're dedicated, but we're not crazy.
That's just Mary and Paul.
Oh, okay.
I'll be awake.
May I ask a question?
Sure, Trustee Parsons.
Chris, could you, just for informational purposes, because I'm not involved in the schools anymore. And I did read Jared's letter today that said that 30% of the overall cases have happened since January 1st. So, it doesn't, obviously we're not in a good trend right now, but I'm just curious, is that like the town overall? Is a lot of that happening in the schools? Like, do you know, is this just?
We've had an increased number of cases for school-aged children. Some go to the Westwood Public Schools, some go to some private schools, but with that, we've also had some household spread. So it's been a little bit of both adults as well as children.
Okay.
But there isn't a community spread in the school, right? There hasn't been community spread in the school.
Nothing has been brought to my attention on that line.
Yeah.
No. The schools have been doing a really good job with their planning, with the way they have the classroom set up, in working in collaboration with our health department. I really think, we are going to have cases. There's no doubt about that. But when they do have cases, there's been very prompt and active response from both the school department as well as the health department. May be frustrating to some parents who have to do some changes, but it's really in the best interest of the overall community.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm hoping that the library can follow the school steps, because the schools have been so good at sort of leading the path of how to bring people back together appropriately with safety.
I think the path that the library has taken thus far and the patience that everyone has had really showed benefits, especially when, like I said, some of the neighboring communities, libraries closed completely, stopped their curbside collection, stopped their browsing. And as I said, there was one that just reopened today, and there was another one that's going to open a week from, we'll open the 15th of the month. So 15th of February, excuse me.
And I know that at the last meeting, Lizzie had shared with us some feedback from the staff and from the patrons, and we considered that. Anything in terms of morale, is morale still good, Trish, among the staff? Are they feeling like we're acting appropriately and safely?
I think that the steps we're taking, the staff feel that we are keeping their safety and security at the highest level that we can. I will say the custodial staff has done a phenomenal job daily, and everyone is taking it very seriously. I know that there's a sense that curbside can be fatiguing. It is a lot of work for the circulation staff in specifically, but I do think that they feel that they're part of a team, and that they're working under conditions that are optimized for them to be healthy and safe. And so I think that that's a good place to be.
And I know that, members of the public who are listening, and in general, we're doing what we can to provide the services within the guidance of the town. We don't want to do anything to negatively impact the town's efforts. we also have to keep foremost in our mind the safety of our staff and the patrons. And as Chris said, we're doing a lot of things that other towns aren't doing. And so we just ask that people be patient. We want to do as much as we can when we can do it.
As of last week, we were one of 5 libraries in Minuteman that were still allowing public into their buildings. Everyone else had pulled back and, oh, am I? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were just 5, and they're starting slowly to reopen some of those other 20 that had to close. Some are still not even offering curbside. So kudos to Karen and crew and Lizzie and everyone, really. We're doing 500 to 600 pickups now a week. So
And were those all because of staff exposure? All those libraries? that
no,
closed?
some of them were town mandated. If the town was considered red, then they were told that they had to eliminate the in-person access. So
Okay.
different towns are following different parameters for what their protocols are. And we are red, so as a
Yes, we
town.
are.
Any other questions from the trustees?
Well,
Go ahead, Trustee
Yeah,
Mansfield.
no, I just want to acknowledge, Tricia, I know it's a huge effort for your staff, but I've heard it from other patrons, and I know my family has certainly availed ourselves of the curbside pickup many times. And they're doing a phenomenal job. And I think that, that goes a long way. Obviously it's not all the services we'd like to offer, but you just look at what's going on around us. And, I'll just say, I can certainly understand it. And I appreciate you and Lizzie giving us the updates on how you feel things are going. And I think caution we're in a time right now when, I know I get it in terms of needing to be cautious, really hoping we get good news on February 8th, but they're doing a great job. The one time that I did do the browsing worked great. The selections they had put out were excellent. Something for me, something for my husband. It was great. But please let them know that, their efforts are very much appreciated.
Would you mind if we put Karen on the spot? She's right here. So Karen, can we ask you firsthand?
Yeah, gut check. Yeah.
How's it going? What do you think?
And you're on mute.
You gotta unmute yourself, Karen.
Or Tricia will have to unmute you or something.
Karen, I think you were unmuted, but it might be your headphones. I don't know if it's connected or not, or if it's taking the volume from it. Does it?
A minute.
There you go.
There you
There
go.
you go. You're good now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I can speak to part of it, but Lizzie really, like, between the children's book bundles, we've really pulled together thanks to Tricia, with 100 support of the staff, and she's down digging into bins and checking in items and getting involved. But we have really pulled together. We have the feedback from patrons it's unbelievable. We have a couple of comments that come in on curbside, and we then print out a nice note and we put the note signed by all the staff in the patrons bag and we thank them and they love it. So it has been, we've come up with creativity, we've figured out how to do it, how it's going to work for the community, how we can offer the best customer service. And so we are very busy. We can run probably about 70 to 80 pickups on a Saturday alone. And during the week, we are averaging between 450 and 550. So it's extremely popular. As soon the patrons don't have to wait. We accommodate the patrons that would have been able to come in to browse and pick up their books. We print the paging list first thing in the morning for local holds. And we have their notices sent out by 11 o'clock. Once 11 o'clock comes, they can call us and they can pick up the same day. So I feel like we've really alleviated that stress level where they can't come in, pick up their items, or they see an item that's available. And this is everyone in the library that's pulled together and just accommodating patrons.
Well, thank you. I know we saw a copy of one of those emails between the patron and you guys, and you can tell how much people really appreciate it and appreciate those personal notes. You probably started a bad thing, you know, it's like, you're feeding the monster here, but
That's okay. We are happy to continue it, Mary Beth. Absolutely.
well, thank you very much.
Great,
Well,
thank you.
it's certainly a tribute to you, Trish, and to the staff you've built and their professionalism and their commitment and their creativity. And we're just as proud as we can be of all of you. And the community should be proud. And Joan and Chris, I appreciate your transparency with us and your guidance and your willingness to talk with us about this. Yes, Mary, you want to say something?
Just when you're done with that, sorry.
Yep.
I didn't mean
And
to
so-
interrupt. Yeah, I was just wondering, Paul, before we move on to the, if you, when you get ready to move on to the next item, whether it might be appropriate to see if there's any public comment related to this topic. So,
That's what I was into. Yeah. Does anybody in the public who's participating tonight have any thoughts or want to share any comments on the situation and how we're doing in COVID? Marjorie?
Yes, I'd like to. I have not done curbside, but I have taken advantage of being able to come in for that 15 minutes. And I can tell you that it's absolutely wonderful.
Nice.
I know you can't see me because I've got my computer chipped wrong, but anyhow, that's all I wanted to say. I'm very happy with what's being done by the library staff, and they're more than helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any other comment? All right, well, then we will await another update on the 8th. But thank you, Joan. Thank you, Chris, and to the staff. And I know this, like, as I said at the last meeting, there's no roadmap for any of this. So we're just trying to be as safe and as cautious and as responsive as we can be. Any further discussion? Hearing none. We'll move on to the next item, which is one which I turn to with heavy heart. As the trustees know, and I don't know if the members of the public who are participating tonight know or not, but Trish Perry has advised the town and the library board of trustees that she will be stepping down as the director of the library at the end of February. We accept that with regret, but we understand. I think anybody who's attended these meetings know the respect and regard that we have for Trish and the work that she's done. She was sort of the person who took the new library and made it into a real center of the community. The steps we've taken to become a library of the 21st century is a tribute to Trish, not only in terms of the quality of services that we provide, but the programming and the other things, and also the staff that she's built. And so I know we'll have another meeting before you leave, Trish, but as having worked with you for the past 3 years as chairman, I know better than anybody the skill and the dedication that you brought to this position. And we wish you well. And now we have to move on to the next phase. And I've talked to Trish, and if the trustees are in accord with it, I've asked Trish if she would take some time to prepare sort of a vision statement of what she thinks, where she thinks library services are going to be headed in the next 5 years, what some of the challenges and opportunities she thinks will exist, and what sort of skills she thinks would be necessary so that we could have her input as we move forward on the transition process. And unless anybody objects, I asked Trish to hold off on that until we met tonight. But I would like to suggest that we have Trish do that. Hearing no objection to that. Okay. I did ask Chris and Joan to come tonight to sort of lay out for us how they would imagine a search would exist, particularly in these times with COVID. I know that's changed how we do personnel decisions, and also to lay out some best practices and some suggestions and advice. And I know Chris has gone through this, and not only here in Westwood, but also in Needham and other places. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to just lay out some guidance and some suggestions and some best practices. I don't know who wants to go first, Chris or Joan.
I think Chris will take the lead. You're muted, Chris.
Thank you. That's a lot to live up to. I think Joan should go first now. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. And if I could just start off by echoing your words for about Tricia, and it's been a pleasure of mine to have the opportunity to work with Tricia for my first year. There will be certainly big shoes to fill. And Tricia, thank you very much for your dedication and your commitment to the town of Westwood.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
In regards to the search, there are some uniqueness when it comes to the library trustees and then the charter. The library trustees certainly have certain authority. And then it gets a little muddy when you go under the town administrator. And so it's literally about as clear as mud when I say it that way. But what Joan and I and Pam have discussed and what we've done recently with one other department here in Westwood, and it's been a philosophy that I've used when I was in Needham, is what I like to do with boards is I like to get representation from the boards to invite them to be part of the process. This is a little different where it's really your process. And so we can do one of two things. We can certainly make our resources available to the trustees and work with you how you see fit. One of the things that Joan and I have talked about in the past, and like I said, what we've done recently here in Westwood is to invite, to work through Joan and to have representation from, in this case, from the trustees, not a quorum, but to have representation from the trustees. And we would put together a search team. And the search team would consist of some department heads, representation from the trustees, and we would go through. What we do is we have a selection. So we have a posting, we have a selection process, we have a first round interview, we have a second round interview, and if we need a third or a final interview, we can certainly have that. Included in that, we also have found it beneficial to invite the team to participate in the search process when we get to the finalists. So we would have the finalists have an opportunity to sit with the team and ask some questions and not kick the tires, so to speak, but just to have an opportunity for the team to meet the finalists before a decision would be made. And I found that fairly successful. And Joan, I don't know if you want to talk about that process, but it seems to be very inclusive, and it also keeps, in this case, would certainly keep the trustees, or at least representation from the trustees, in line with what's happening throughout that process.
Thank you. Joan?
I would agree with everything you've said, Chris. It's great to be able to work, by having a sort of a diverse committee. We have different stakeholders bringing their perspectives to the process, and it works well. Too many people on the committee makes it a little unwieldy and hard to schedule. But in another instance that we had, I would suggest that up to 2 trustees would be appointed to the committee. It doesn't necessarily mean, it didn't necessarily mean in this other search that both were there simultaneously. In fact, sometimes they sort of had to tag team because of work schedules, so that, one would, be on one round and another would be on the other round, and they could talk to each other. So ultimately they saw each of the candidates, but not necessarily at the same time at every step in the process. So, I'm completely willing. The process that Chris laid out is the typical process that we go through when we're hiring. One question I would have for your consideration is there something different that we should do for a library director? I would be honest, I've never hired a library director. So is there a presentation we'll want finalists to make or something like that? Let's think about how to make it in this day of COVID where it's all virtual. So, we'll do at the very end, we do try to bring candidates in and sit in a very socially distanced way so they can actually see the space and things like that. But until that last step, it's usually a Zoom process. So it'll be great to work with you on this search. And I actually, my first choice is that Trisha's going to change her mind, and we just all save ourselves a lot of time. So far, I haven't been able to convince her, but I'm still working. But no, so we'll, welcome your input.
Do you recommend community participation? It in some means is part of that as well, or?
You know what? That is a great question. I have not done that in the past with other searches, but we haven't hired. Well, we did for when we hired our fire chief. We had community participation on the committee. So
Chris?
There's certainly an
certainly.
opportunity, Mr. Chair, where we can work through the chair and the library trustees to identify maybe different organizations in the community that work very closely with the library. That would have some benefit to have as be part of that search and to have some input with the candidates regarding the services they provide and the working relationship they have with the library.
Okay. And I know we do have two trustees who have gone through this process before, Mary Beth and Mary Macy Phelps. So I don't know if you want to talk about past practices and your thoughts having gone through this when the trustees hired Trish.
Well,
First, Mary Beth,
oh, what'd you say?
you go first, then I'll
Oh, okay.
chime in later.
Mary Beth?
Sure. I guess the first thing that came to mind, other than the process that Chris outlined, was is there an opportunity for the staff? What we did last time too is the staff came and asked questions. There were three trustees actually that were involved. So that was my first question. And then, well, why don't we address that first?
Yeah, that's that. We would agree with you there, Mary Beth, that it's very important to get the team's input. And I think when Chris mentioned the team would get together, I think he was talking about the library team members.
Oh, okay.
That, to see the finalists,
you.
not necessarily to
But
be at every step of the process. Well, at least that's what our proposal would be.
Well, since we're on the topic of staff participation, what we did, and we worked collaboratively with the town, where the director of human services, or HR, worked with us and kind of set out the process. We had the three trustees. Mike Gillette was on it. I can't remember if anyone else, but I know Mary Beth Bernard from HR was on it. But what we did is we did a couple of workshops that set the stage for the job description and the questions that we asked candidates and so on, reviewing candidates. And one of those was I don't know if it was a SWOT or a SOAR or one of those where you talk about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and so on. And I believe as far as along with that, and Karen and Lizzie might recall, I think I recall that we had a meeting as part of the upfront process where staff were welcome to come and just speak to the trustees and give us their thoughts, very open-ended. And we took that. I don't think, I'm trying to remember, we may have had one staff member on the committee. I think we did. But
I think Nancy
earlier in the
Hogan
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes,
Yeah.
she was, yeah.
But
Harrison
that's
from
right.
the
You're
planning.
right. You're right. We did have one staff member on. Tricia would remember because she was interviewed by us. But early in the process, I found it very helpful to sit, just to sit with the staff and let them, come forward with ideas, questions, thoughts, whatever. That was, I thought, a helpful part of the process. I don't know, Karen or Lizzie, if you recall, and am I remembering that correctly? And I have a question about what's the purpose of the committee. I get it that we don't want too many of the trustees on the committee, and I'm all for having broader representation. I'd love to have someone from the community, maybe another department head or whatever. But fundamentally, who makes the decision? And I think the trustees aren't just, they have a representative. I think we need a bit more of an active role in the decision. And I wasn't sure what was, Chris, what you found in the charter and so on, but.
Can I just add a comment to that, Mary?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been on the MBLC trustees, whatever they call email distribution for years and years, and this subject comes up a fair amount. And I can just say that trustees are incredibly passionate about the fact that it is the trustees' role. It does belong to the trustees, just according to the state law, according to the charter. And I mean, I'm not, I just find it I would find it almost from reading all these conversations throughout the years that, I mean, I thought it worked really well the way we did it last time, but I think in the end, it does belong in our laps effectively. I think we do have the responsibility because we are supposed to hire and fire the library director. So, but that being said, I mean, Mary Beth Bernard really, I mean, she really kind of structured the whole process effectively. We just kind of made sure it went along according to the way we wanted it to, the way we needed it to.
And you
Yeah.
had 3 trustees?
We
Was that,
did, we
that
did.
didn't violate the open meeting quorum of the board?
Well,
Well,
I guess, did we have 6 people on board? I don't remember.
four is a quorum for the trustees.
Right.
Right.
So,
And the way the structure, the way it worked was very much the way you've laid out, Chris and Joan. But I think that it was more, the trustees were playing an active role. We didn't just, it's not just that trustees had 2 votes and a committee had 8 out of 8. It was, the committee, Mary Beth Bernard at the time and Mike Gillette guided us through that process. The committee, which included Mike Gillette, included the town administrator, recommended the final candidate to the trustees, and
Right.
the trustees gave the final vote. That's my recollection of the process, and our minutes would reflect that if we went past. But that's my understanding, that there's a committee, but at the end of the day, that there's got to be someone that votes on it. And I think the committee, I don't see the committee as making the decision. That there's got to be a formal board that's
oh, I remember us bringing that back to the trustees for a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
there would be a recommendation or an
Right.
advisory recommendation. And I agree, having looked at the charter and talked a little bit about it with Chris, that at the end of the day, I think we formally have to do it. Obviously, we would seek the input of the town because the library director, well, reports to the board, but also has operational and reporting responsibilities with the town administrator and in terms of performance evaluations and things like that. So we would want, I think, somebody that the town felt was comfortable with and was qualified and would be somebody that Chris and Joan could work with. I know that Trish works very closely with Joan, and I know that she does with the town administrator. And so, but at the end of the day, I agree, it is our call. And I think if we had, it's the sense it should be 3 trustees, so we can't reach a quorum, because then it has to become a
I
public
don't know.
meeting.
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, no.
I don't think it has to be 3
Yeah.
trustees, and I like the ideas that have come forward about, having other,
Right.
maybe greater diversity on it. I think that might have been, just thinking back to our process, I like that idea. But I don't know.
Well, this is a sense that if we had a committee that had broad outreach with, say, 2 trustees, and then obviously department head, some community representation, I think we should probably think about the Friends, maybe
Yep.
as a potential group, right?
Yeah, we probably had someone from the Friends too as well. Again, it's, it's slowly coming back to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I don't, Mary Beth and I have spoken quite a bit based on the last time, but I'm interested in what the other trustees' thoughts are as well.
I think someone from the Friends is a good idea. And my other question is, would the participation from the staff happen before you get to the point of finalists? I would hope. Is that the way you did it the last time? That you brought them in early on in the process to have an opportunity?
Yeah, we took input from them.
Right.
The staff don't, there was one staff representative on the committee, I
Mhm.
believe, who, Tricia reminded us, was Nancy Hogan. So there was one staff member who participated on the committee, so participated in the interviews. But I think that's,
And I believe if I remember properly, I think the staff selected their own representative.
That's right. They selected Nancy. Yeah. Lizzie, Karen, are we remembering that correctly?
Yes, as far as I remember as well. I think we did have like a meeting that we got to kind of decide. But I also do remember, Mary, that I think we did have like an opportunity to talk to, if not all the trustees, a few of you, like, one evening, anybody could come in and be like, what are you looking for? And that type of thing. And before you guys started the actual
Right.
process.
Right. That was an important listening session. That meant a lot to the trustees to get that input.
Yeah.
We could do that at our next meeting, certainly.
Yeah.
Jess and Wendy, I'd be interested if you had
I
any
like-
thoughts.
I like the idea of the community input because I'm thinking when we hired Emily Parks to be the superintendent, even Amy Davenport, who's now the current high school principal, they did get a lot of input from the community, and they even were on a committee too.
Yeah, I echo Jess on that statement. I feel like I only know about the school, but they're always asking for community input or the option to have community input.
Mhm.
And the library is such an important part of the community.
True.
These are great suggestions. And I think this has been really helpful for me. I think that it's rare. I can't imagine ever getting to the end of a process where I've never been involved in a process where there was like a divided vote, half wants this person, half wants that person. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't think that will, that means that you haven't found the right person yet if you haven't got, consensus in strong candidate. I'm sure we will. I did look today. There were, we haven't posted the job yet because we wanted to have this meeting. The other thing that will be going on simultaneously is that we have searches for the head of adult services and the reference librarian going on simultaneously. So there's a lot of recruiting going on.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Joan. Paul, if I could just ask,
Yes.
any thoughts on going forward with those now? Obviously, once the director job is posted, what are your recommendations on? Do we just pedal to the metal, keep going with those while we're recruiting for a director? I would think anyone coming in is going to see, director transition. I don't know. Thoughts on the advisability of this, of how we proceed on those things?
Ideally, we could bring these all to a conclusion around the same time. I don't know that we can do that. We just felt that we couldn't wait. We couldn't wait till we had a new director in place to then begin the process for. And I think that, quite honestly, Trisha has done a great job hiring staff. Among her many talents, she hires great people. And so I think that she could be helpful to us as we're looking for the department head position and the reference librarian. Along with her, she works very collaboratively, with her team. So that's what we thought that was the best approach, because then we've had some turnover, some people who left the library that haven't been replaced. So we're starting to get a little thin in the ranks. So we thought it would be a good idea to utilize the great process that we have for hiring internal staff as we embark upon this director search.
I think that's advisable. That way, Trish can help with that, and I know that that's underway. So is the way forward then? If I just some thoughts I had is obviously at the next meeting to have a listening session with the staff at the next trustees meeting. And at that point in time, also think about who we would want to have represent the trustees as part of this, part of the selection group. And also discuss, maybe have some potential individuals for community participation and other, is that the way to go, you think, trustees and Joan? Yes, Trish, did you want to say something?
Well, just a question. I think that the staff, you might get better and more honest feedback if it wasn't a public meeting, that you were asking for their input in terms of what they were looking for. That's just my opinion, but.
Right. Well, it's hot. Then we couldn't have a quorum of the trustees. How did you do it the last time,
We
Mary?
set up a subcommittee
Okay.
We had the chair and then the two of us were on the committee. We had a subcommittee and everything was done by that subcommittee.
Okay. Is that the way the trustees would like to go now?
I think that might be a little bit more nimble.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, obviously, as the chair, I'll have to take one of the, I'm happy to take the lead in this. Is there any suggestions as to who the other members of the subcommittee? Or do you want to think about it and we can do that at the next meeting? I'm open to what my colleagues would prefer.
Any volunteers? Voluntold?
Oh. Um,
Can people get back to you if they're interested, Paul?
Sure.
Why don't
Yeah.
we just do
And then
that?
we can formally establish it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that, since
Yeah.
we're just talking about this for the first time, I think it's
Right.
worth taking a little bit of time. And we're meeting again in a couple of weeks.
2
Right.
weeks.
So
Hmm.
I think
Is
that'll
that-
give people a chance so they don't feel that they're on the spot to have to
Yes.
do something or let somebody else go first.
And obviously, I'd welcome any
Yeah.
thoughts about community participants. And if Joan and Chris, if you could recommend by that time some non-community, what you think from the town side would be helpful to us.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Oh, when
Mr.
would
Chair,
you, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Maureen.
when would you anticipate posting?
Yeah.
That was going to be my next point.
Yeah. What else do we need to know, Chris, in terms of, it's a great point about the process, like what decision points are there? And I think
Right.
it's also important for us to understand, because as you said, it's a little bit clear as mud with things, to make sure that we're working in appropriate concert with you and with the town, and kind of who's got to do what when.
So, and thank you. That was one of the questions I was going to ask, as far as, so Joan has drafted a posting. And based on what I'm hearing now, it seems like the best thing to do is to hold off on that posting until the trustees have determined who's going to be representing the trustees through the selection process. What we could do is maybe then work with whomever those representees are and share that draft posting and get some feedback, and then work collaboratively from that standpoint. And then once we have a final document, a final posting, we could then post the position.
Is that acceptable to the board, the trustees?
Yeah, I think so.
Sounds-
So I know Tricia had sent something around earlier. Was that from Joan, or was that something different? Because what I thought Tricia sent around is what we used when we hired Tricia.
Yeah,
Right.
so Tricia, just to clarify, Chris, Tricia.
That
took
gets
the
us
cut-
another Tricia, then great.
Tricia had taken a cut at the job posting. I took a look at it and just have added a couple of little edits.
Mhm.
And so this is where just in all honesty, I guess I had thought that we would post it sooner than February 8th, just to get the ball rolling, because we usually want to leave about 3 weeks of time for people to
Right.
get their resumes in.
Yeah.
And so if we wait, and the soonest that we do it is after February 8th. And to your point, Chris, I agree with you. One way to do it is to wait until the structure's in place, and then the committee really creates the posting and looks at it. The trade-off there is just time. That you are pausing the process before you begin.
Not to be a stickler here, but just to advise the trustees that if this matter, as far as the posting, isn't on your agenda for discussion, I would suggest not discussing it here.
Right.
If you want to meet at another public session to have a discussion regarding the posting, we can certainly have that on your agenda. Or if you decide to identify representatives from the trustees, no more than no more than 2 or 3, whichever you prefer, we could certainly work with those individuals leading up to it, February 8th, if you'd like.
What did my colleagues, I'd like to take a sense of the board.
If I might, so because it does fall eventually in the hands of the trustees, and then, but also obviously working in concert with the town, would it be appropriate then if just only the town and the trustees work together on the posting? as opposed to having to involve other people on the team, like community or anybody else? It's just
Oh,
those, am I
I'm sorry,
understanding
can I
that
just respond to
properly?
that?
I might not have understood that, but are we
Oh,
still?
I'm sorry. When I say, I'm sorry, I say team a lot, and I apologize. Sir. Team means a lot. I apologize.
That's okay, that's okay.
The thought was, when I say the team, it would be Joan, myself, possibly Pam, and then the representatives from the trustees to work
Okay.
on the posting, not the whole
Oh,
community.
okay, okay.
My concern is having a discussion regarding, or a decision, a vote regarding something that's not on your agenda.
Got you on that. I got you on that.
Right.
yeah.
Sorry for the confusion.
So it would seem like to me, if that's the case, I mean, that couldn't be done. I mean, I don't know, couldn't that be done by like February 1st and have a nice even February 1st posting date kind of thing?
We'd have to call we'd have to call another meeting on the trustees, which I'm not averse to.
Right, well, it's not like, it's not like a 2-hour meeting, right?
No,
I'm sorry. We'd have to call another meeting of the trustees.
and we would put the posting on the agenda and approve the posting.
Does
Okay.
it have to, does it have to be the full board or do you just have?
No, if we do the subcommittee, it can be the subcommittee, I assume, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, can I suggest something?
sure. That's why we asked you, Chris, to come.
Okay. If the trustees were inclined to decide who was going to represent the trustees, at least you could do it in more than one area. You could have representatives for the posting, you could have representatives for the selection, you could have representatives for the first round, the second round. You could have the same people do it all. But if you wanted to get the posting out there faster, one way of doing that would identify some representatives from the trustees. Joan can circulate that to those individuals only, get their support, get their comments, and then post that.
Right, I think that makes sense.
Well
Is that,
before your February 8th meeting.
yeah, is that acceptable to my colleagues? To do a subcommittee, at least in the interim, just on the posting?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Do we as a board have to approve the subcommittee? Or does that have to come
Well,
up
we
for a
appoint it.
motion
I
or
would
no?
appoint-
Oh,
I
you
would
just appoint it.
Hang on,
That's
can I
right.
point of order? Okay.
Yes. What is your point of order?
We may need to ask town council about this.
Okay,
The way I read the open meeting law
Mhm.
is that if the library trustees appoint a subcommittee
yes,
for this, that subcommittee is subject to the open meeting law. If, however, there is a representative or two on some other committee, I don't know what the rules are for a hiring subcommittee.
Right.
And Chris, I defer to you on that, but I think we need to use caution before we call something a subcommittee of the trustees. Because from FinCom, I remember when we had like the education subcommittee of FinCom, the subcommittee had to follow.
this meeting,
open
oh, I know, I agree that a subcommittee would have to have a public meeting.
So
Yeah,
what I said at the beginning is we can make our resources available to the trustees if the trustees wanted to run it. And then I talked about some thoughts. I said, working through Joan. So
Yeah.
if the representatives were identified to Joan, doesn't even have to be here. I just need someone to
Right.
tell Joan,
Yeah, to advise
possibly
them.
chair, 1 or 2 people who are going to be serving. It's now not a committee. It's a selection team that Joan was going to be spearheading, and then she would work with the selection team from that standpoint.
Gotcha.
So I don't need.
That must be how we did it last
someone
time.
from the trustees to identify who's going to represent, and that could just be a quick email to Joan on who's going to be representing the trustees on this selection process that Joan will
Right.
be.
So it sounds like what you're looking for tonight is designation of a couple of people
Well,
to
I
do
thought
that.
that we
Yeah.
said we
If
were
not
supposed to
tonight.
get back to the chair
Yeah.
Yeah,
after the
Yeah, right.
meeting.
right. But then
So-
that, yeah,
Yeah. So
All
the
right,
chair
but-
could- so Paul, you could certainly send something to Joan and myself saying these are the 2 people that'll be on
Right.
which committee that Joan's leading, and then we can go.
Okay, and would that satisfy on the posting, Chris?
Then what Joan would do is she would work with those individuals on the posting.
Okay, all right. So can I ask my colleagues to let me know by Wednesday?
Mhm.
Is that,
Sure.
yep. And then the chair, we're leaving it to the chair to decide.
And if that's the sense, I'm not, I'm the chairman, I'm not the head of the politics.
Well, I'm, as the discussion moves on, I'm having, I kind of think that needs to be a matter of public record.
Yeah. Okay, well, we can certainly call a meeting.
No, or we can, if someone wants to stand forward tonight, I mean, I was on the last search. I would be happy to serve, but I also, appreciate that some of the other members of the board might want to step forward. So
Is there anybody who,
That's how I feel. I almost don't feel like it's really, appropriate for me to step forward first because I was
Right.
involved in the last search.
Wendy, Joan, Maureen?
Well,
I will just say it's
I
a fair
think I
amount
have
of
to.
work.
Oh.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Wendy.
Well, sorry, I was going to mention this in February, but I think I have to recuse myself because I'm not going to be re-upping for the trustees in April.
Oh.
So I don't think it would be fair for me to be on the committee,
Okay.
which I didn't mean to say this at
No,
this moment. I was going to say it in February.
Okay.
Wendy probably saw my email earlier saying, how come you haven't pulled papers? With that, I will say, I'm sorry to hear that, Wendy, and
Yes.
I've certainly valued your membership here. And with that, I should probably recuse myself. I think I would prefer not to step forward because I am up for reelection and I have pulled papers. So, maybe the better part of valor is for me to step back and see if anyone else wants to step forward.
Okay,
Mary Beth, you're,
Jessica, that leaves you and I.
Yeah, it sure does.
it's,
Okay. That's fine with me. I'd be happy to serve in that
Okay.
capacity.
right.
Same here. I mean, I'm happy to help find a new director. I'm very sad at the same time, but
Me too. It'll be a hard job.
it will be. But we know what we want.
I
Use
would-
the same job description that we used to get Tricia.
Exactly.
Well,
If I could, I appreciate that. I would like to maybe ask Mary Beth, I would like somebody who'd been through it before.
Yeah.
well, maybe
Okay,
like Chris was suggesting, we can get involved in different
right.
of it somehow, you know what I mean? You can start out with your 2 reps with Joan for the
The posting.
posting, and then we can decide, okay, what makes sense for going.
I think that's good. So how about for at this point in time, for purposes of the posting, it would be myself and Mary Beth. Is that
That sounds great.
okay?
For the posting, Paul and Mary Beth?
Yes,
Okay.
at least we can get that out by early February, hopefully,
Yeah.
Joan.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and then for purposes of getting some staff feedback, how do you want to do that? What's the suggestion for that?
We just call a meeting.
Well, but yeah, I take Mary Macy's Phelps's point about not being an open session.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, like a small group, like, does it
Yeah.
have to be quorum? We don't have to have a quorum of the directors, of the trustees.
Or would that be something that can be handled between Joan and, the representatives from the board? Would that then not have to be a public meeting? I thought Tricia's point about that
Yeah,
would be well taken, that an opportunity to speak,
okay, I'm happy to do that if,
Well, I am too. I just, I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we have to do it that way,
right.
but
Mary Macy Phelps, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just not sure what the right protocol is for that, so
Yeah.
I'd be interested if Chris or Joan had any advice on how you might have done that with other departments or anything.
You're mute.
Sorry about that. With other departments, Joan and I spoke with the department. So the other example that I mentioned or referred to earlier, Joan and I spoke with the department. We spoke with some members of the committee. And then we got a sense, and then we put together the posting, and then we worked out the selection process.
Would it be reasonable then for one, maybe one of the trustees to be with you and part of that process, or?
Certainly. Yeah.
Sure.
Not a problem at all. I mean, I'm sure that, well, I would presume the team would appreciate having some representation from the trustees as part of that discussion.
Okay. I'm happy to do it. If you want to set up a meeting, Chris and Joan. Yes, Lizzie, did you want to say something?
When you meant team this time, did you mean staff?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Okay.
Lizzie.
I didn't- I just wanted
I
to
was
make
wondering
sure.
as well.
I think what Chris is,
I was like, oh.
I think what Chris is proposing would be that Joan, himself and myself have a session with the library staff. Is that what you're suggesting, Chris?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it could be like over Zoom type of thing if people
Yeah.
want to log on. Okay.
Yes, it'll be a virtual meeting, Lizzie.
Okay. Thank you.
And is that prior to the posting being done?
What do you, again, I would think what's best practices. We could do the posting. I think that the staff thing is more like what do we need in a candidate, right?
I think the posting is, I mean, it could,
Pretty much done.
yeah, I think the posting is relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
It could probably always be improved somewhat, but I think the great benefit of having the staff, that's really where we're going to be like thinking about, what are we looking for? What are the characteristics of the person that we want to hire?
Right.
I think that wouldn't change the posting that much.
Gotcha.
No,
The
it might
posting
help
is
with
posting.
developing interview questions. and-
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah, and
Certainly will.
I can also speak from the perspective of having been a community representative when we hired Superintendent Antonucci. I know on that process, Maureen, that's exactly what the community members and other department heads and so on. And that's when the SWOT analysis was done. And that's where, Tricia's thoughts, I think, would be welcome there. That's how we helped to craft the questions. And then when the interviews happened, every candidate was asked the same set of questions that were
Right.
based on those things like the staff interviews. And, that's where in both cases, really we relied on the then equivalent of Joan and Mike to run that. Although in the case of the superintendent, it would have been, the school committee running it. But yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
Well, then can I suggest then that you guys, that the posting be finalized and presented to myself and Mary Beth as representatives of the trustees so that we can move that forward. And then we'll try, if possible, to have that listening session with the staff. We can try to do it before the next trustees meeting if possible. And then we can report back to the trustees what sort of we glean from that. Does that make sense?
Can I just ask, where will this be posted? Because I seem to recall that before, when Tom was retiring, there is some library specific places it gets posted.
Yes.
You guys know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't need to tell you that. Okay. You
Tricia,
know
you're on
what it
mute.
is. I don't know what it is. I just remember him saying something about, oh yeah, well, as soon as it goes here, that's when things will happen.
We don't put, so you don't put it in Bank and Tradesman.
Monster.com.
Is that a good way for the first initial steps here between now and when we next meet?
Oh, certainly.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Great. I don't have anything else from my end. Is there anything else anybody wants to add?
Only one thing, if we're thinking of down the road looking for a representative from the Friends, we might want to contact Tina Bronkhurst and see if
For sure.
she'd like to talk to her board and, see if there's a representative they'd like to put forward.
Trish, have you talked to them and let them know yet, or?
I have not, no.
Okay.
But I can
Yeah,
do
I
that.
think that's the first step. Why don't, if you want to let them know,
I can do that.
I think they'd rather hear it from you,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
give you an opportunity to get some feedback.
Okay.
Okay.
Joan, do you have any indication of what the market is like out there? Will we have a lot of resumes? Do you have any idea?
I think that we will, but that I would defer to Tricia on that, and her sense of that.
I announced it at the Minuteman Board of Directors meeting at the same time that Paula Benetti announced that she was retiring from Wayland. And I've already had one person reach out to me to talk about the town of Westwood and the Westwood Public Library. So I think that there's going to be a lot of interest in the director's job. And I'm sure, Lizzie, you'll probably hear the same thing from a number of your colleagues as well. So.
This was a very desirable place to work, so we'll get a good, that's what I think.
Good.
Is there anything else we need to address tonight on this?
I don't think so.
No. No. I know we have some members of the public. Any public participation? Any thoughts on this process from the public? No. Hearing none. Okay, Chris and Joan, anything you want to add at this point? Or any other suggestions or?
No, I think this has been very helpful, really helpful to participate. Thank you.
Okay.
Just
Look forward to
thank
working
the
with you all.
trustees and
You too.
the staff, so I don't say team to confuse anybody. Going forward.
I do like team. I like the feeling of it. I just want to make sure I'm part
There's
of the
too
team.
many little teams in this, so let me just.
I'm sorry, I get confused very easily, Chris.
No, that's all on me. So I just,
So we'll take this. I'll take the first stage to get the posting and get the staff input. We'll bring that back to the trustees February 9th meeting. Then we'll talk about next steps. Maybe we do a phased approach and have different trustees participate in different ways. I obviously want this to be an inclusive process for all my colleagues. It's not something I've gone through before, but we have Trish and we have some people who have, and I just want it to be the best process possible.
I think that the way, Chris and Joan have laid it out and we've discussed here, I think it's going to be good, highly representative and well thought out.
And Trisha has already done the first thing for us, which has really helped, is she's cloned herself, because on my screen, I see Trisha Perry 3 times.
Yeah, right.
So it takes a lot to replace her, so. And one of those is not even her. It's not even her. But I regret having to take part in this process, Trisha. I will miss you dearly. You've done a phenomenal job, and sorry to see you go.
Well, it's bittersweet, but I know it's the right move for me. So thank you.
Wendy, Jess, Maureen, anything you want to add at this point?
Well, I would certainly echo Mary Beth's sentiments.
Thank you.
I agree.
Same.
Agreed.
Well,
Same.
thank you all. Thank you.
So then we'll definitely have the posting out there as quick as possible, and hopefully we can report back to the trustees on February 9th about the staff feedback, and Trish is going to be working on a sort of a vision statement.
I did send something out preliminarily, so there's a little short-term, long-term goals that if you want to take a look at, Paul.
Okay, and okay. Did you send that to me or to everybody?
To everybody.
To everybody.
That was
okay.
just, thoughts, not a vision statement per
Right.
se.
So
but just sort
so
of
why don't
things.
we take a look at that, and then if people individually want to follow up with Trish and just pick her brain a little bit, that would be helpful as well.
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification.
Yes.
Is your meeting on the 8th or the 9th?
It might be the 9th. I'm sorry.
No, it's the 8th.
It's the 8th.
Monday, the 8th
Monday, the 8th. Yep.
Thank you.
at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
In the morning, Chris. No.
That's better for me.
Yeah, it's a good time for Chris.
Okay. And then you'll reach out to the friends
Yes, I will.
in conjunction. Why don't you and Jess and Maureen talk about the best way to approach the friends?
Sure.
And I would like, and obviously Maureen and Jess, any thoughts you have in terms of community participation and stuff like that? But, you know, I want to make sure we involve, you know, obviously as many people as we can without making it too unwieldy.
Correct.
I don't have anything further. There's no new business. We only convened for these two purposes. Unless anybody has anything else to say, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Made by Mary Macy Phelps. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Van Au. Trustee Van Au,
Aye.
Trustee Cole,
Aye.
Trustee Thornton,
Aye.
Trustee Persons,
Aye.
Trustee Macy Phelps,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Joan. And
Yes.
and we'll Trish, this isn't, you know, we still have another meeting and to
Yeah.
talk this stuff through, but you know how we feel. And I thank everybody, and please stay happy and healthy. And if you have any thoughts, just please reach out to me about this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Chris.
Night.
John.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Next
Thank you.
Thank you.